I still remember the smug look on Jason Trevor's face when he called me into his office. After 23 years at Datatech Solutions, I thought I'd seen everything, but nothing prepared me for what happened that Tuesday morning. "Tim, we're restructuring," Jason said, barely looking up from his laptop. At 35, he was young enough to be my son, yet somehow he'd become my boss 6 months ago. "Your position is being eliminated." My heart dropped. What about the training program? I just finished teaching the new team everything about our core systems. Jason finally looked at me, that arrogant smile spreading across his face. Perfect timing, actually. Now they're ready to take over. He slid a termination packet across his mahogany desk. "Security will escort you out in an hour." I stared at the papers, my hands trembling slightly. 23 years of building systems, mentoring teams, and creating the backbone of this company's telecommunications infrastructure. Gone. Just like that. But as I sat there, looking at Jason's satisfied expression, I realized something he didn't know. You can fire a man, but you can't fire his knowledge. And I had built these systems from the ground up. Walking to my office with the security guard felt like a death march. My coworkers avoided eye contact as I packed my personal items into a cardboard box. Sarah from accounting whispered, "I'm sorry," as I passed her desk. Even she knew this was wrong. The new team Jason had hired watched from the conference room. 5 fresh-faced engineers, all under 30, all convinced they could replace me. I'd spent the last 3 months patiently teaching them everything I could. Well, almost everything. "Don't forget your plant," the security guard said awkwardly, pointing to the small cactus on my windowsill. I'd had that thing for 15 years. As I packed it carefully, I remembered something important. All those client relationships I'd built over 2 decades. All those vendor contacts who trusted me personally. All those little details about our systems that weren't written in any manual. Jason thought he was getting rid of dead weight. What he didn't realize was that he just fired the one person who truly understood how everything worked together. The new team knew the basics, sure. But understanding a system and truly knowing it are 2 very different things. I walked out that door knowing the truth would reveal itself soon enough. That night, I sat in my home office, staring at my phone. It had been buzzing non-stop with calls from worried clients. Word travels fast in the telecommunications world, and my sudden departure had already reached key accounts. "Tim, what's going on?" asked Marcus Webb from TNT Communications, our biggest client. "I heard you're no longer with Datatech?" "That's correct, Marcus. I'm no longer with the company," I replied calmly. "But you're our main contact. You know our entire setup. Who's supposed to handle our account now?" I explained that Jason's new team would be taking over. The silence on the other end was telling. "Tim, with all due respect, we've worked together for 8 years. These new people, they don't know our system like you do." He was right. Our telecommunications setup for TNT was incredibly complex. Custom routing protocols, specialized hardware configurations, emergency backup systems that I'd designed specifically for their needs. The new team had learned the theory, but they'd never handled a real crisis. As I ended the call, my phone immediately rang again. Another client. Then another. By midnight, I'd spoken to 12 major accounts, all expressing the same concern. They trusted me, not Datatech. The next morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls and 34 emails, all from clients, all asking the same question. What should they do now? I made myself coffee and started responding professionally to each one. "I appreciate your concern, but I'm no longer in a position to assist. Please contact Datatech directly for any support needs." But I knew something they'd discover soon enough. The systems I'd built weren't just complex, they were personalized. Every major client had custom configurations that I'd developed over years of working with them. The documentation existed, but it was technical, dense, and required deep understanding to implement correctly. Around 10 a.m., my phone rang. Jason's name appeared on the screen. I let it go to voicemail. "Tim, it's Jason. Some clients are asking for you specifically. Can you please refer them to the new team? Call me back." I deleted the message without responding. I wasn't being petty. I simply had no obligation to make his transition easier. He'd made his choice. Now he could live with the consequences. By noon, I'd received 6 more calls from Jason. I ignored them all. The beautiful thing about leverage is that you often don't realize you have it until it's gone. 3 days after my firing, the first real problem hit. Sarah from accounting called me on my personal cell. "Tim, I'm not supposed to be calling you, but we have a situation. The automated call routing system crashed this morning, and the new team can't get it back online." I wasn't surprised. The routing system was one of my most complex creations, a network of interconnected protocols that managed thousands of daily calls for our clients. It required regular maintenance, and more importantly, it required someone who understood why I'd built it the way I had. "They've been working on it for 6 hours, Sarah continued, her voice stressed. 3 major clients have already complained about dropped calls." "I'm sorry to hear that," I replied genuinely, "but I'm no longer with the company." "I know, but Jason is freaking out. He's been trying to reach you all morning." I looked at my phone. 12 missed calls from Jason, 6 from unknown numbers that were probably his attempts to reach me through different lines. "Sarah, I wish I could help, but my access was terminated. Even if I wanted to assist, I couldn't log into any systems." After hanging up, I felt a mixture of satisfaction and sympathy. Satisfaction because Jason was finally realizing what he'd lost. Sympathy for my former coworkers who were dealing with the chaos. By the end of the week, word had spread throughout the industry. I'd quietly started putting out feelers for consulting opportunities, and the response was immediate. Veteran engineers who knew my reputation were reaching out. "Heard you're available," said Tom Mitchell from Apex Solutions, a competitor firm. "We could use someone with your expertise." During our lunch meeting, Tom asked the obvious question, "What's the real story with Datatech?" Industry chatter says they're having some technical difficulties. I chose my words carefully. Leadership there has shifted toward a younger demographic. Sometimes experience gets overlooked in favor of cost savings. Tom nodded knowingly. "Their loss could be our gain. We've actually been trying to win over some of their clients for years." I didn't encourage anything unethical, but I also didn't discourage honest competition. "I think you'll find that some of their major accounts might be reassessing their needs soon." That afternoon, I received a call from Rebecca Torres at TNT Communications. "Tim, we've been having issues with our system since you left. The new team seems overwhelmed. We're considering our options." "I understand, Rebecca. These transitions can be challenging. Are you planning to continue in telecommunications?" "I'm exploring several opportunities." The conversation was brief, professional, and loaded with unspoken meaning. A week later, something unexpected happened. A tech journalist named Kevin Price contacted me about writing a feature story on veteran engineers in the telecommunications industry. "I'm doing a piece on the value of experience versus the trend toward hiring younger teams," he explained. "Your name came up several times as someone who built foundational systems that are still in use today." The interview took place at a quiet coffee shop downtown. Kevin asked thoughtful questions about my career, my innovations, and my thoughts on the industry's direction. "What advice would you give to companies that are restructuring their technical teams?" he asked. I considered my words carefully. Knowledge transfer isn't just about documenting processes. It's about understanding the reasoning behind decisions, the relationships with clients and vendors, and the subtle interactions between systems that aren't always obvious on paper. "Any regrets about leaving Datatech?" "I didn't leave by choice," I said simply, "but I only regret training people who valued my skills just long enough to discard them." The quote felt honest and measured. I had no idea it would change everything. The article was published 3 days later in Tech Weekly, a widely read industry publication. By noon, my phone was ringing non-stop. The article hit the industry like a bomb. My quote about training people who discarded me was being shared across LinkedIn, Twitter, and industry forums. Within hours, value experience was trending, with hundreds of veteran engineers sharing their own stories. But the real impact came from an unexpected source: our clients. Marcus Webb from TNT Communications posted on LinkedIn, "Reading about Tim Grant's departure from Datatech. This man designed our entire communications infrastructure and saved us millions in downtime over the years. Companies that don't value this kind of expertise deserve what they get." The post got over 500 likes and dozens of comments from other data tech clients, all expressing similar sentiments. Meanwhile, Jason was in full damage control mode. He posted his own LinkedIn response. Data tech values all our employees, past and present. We're committed to seamless service for all clients with our highly trained team. The response backfired. Comments poured in asking why, if they valued me so much, I was no longer with the company. That evening, my phone rang again. Jason's name on the screen. This time I answered. "Tim, we need to talk." "About what, Jason?" "This article. It's causing problems. Clients are asking questions." I only spoke the truth. "Can we meet? Maybe we can work something out." "I'm afraid I'm fully booked with new consulting opportunities." 2 weeks after the article, disaster struck data tech in a way that no one could have predicted, except me. It was a Tuesday morning when the entire communications network for 3 major clients went down simultaneously. Not just slow or glitchy, completely dead. No calls in or out, no data transfer, nothing. Sarah called me again, her voice panicked. "Tim, they need you. The whole system is down, and nobody knows why." I'd been expecting this. The network failure wasn't random. It was the result of a cascading error in the load balancing protocols I'd designed. These protocols automatically redistributed network traffic during high usage periods, but they required careful calibration and regular updates to security certificates that expired every few months. "When did this start?" I asked. "About an hour ago. The new team has been trying everything, but they can't even figure out where the problem is coming from." I knew exactly where the problem was coming from. It was buried deep in the system architecture, in a subsection that required administrator access and knowledge of the specific commands I'd built into the diagnostic tools. "Tim," Sarah's voice cracked slightly, "Jason is desperate. He said he'll do anything if you'll help." "I'm sorry, Sarah, I don't have access to their systems anymore, and I'm not an employee. There are liability issues." The outage lasted 14 hours. 14 hours of no communications for 3 major clients, including T&T Communications. When it was finally resolved, not by the data tech team, but by an emergency contractor brought in at enormous expense, the damage was catastrophic. The contractor's report was damning. System failure due to expired security certificates and load balancing protocols should have been routine maintenance. But it wasn't routine for anyone except the person who built it. Me. The next day, I received a call from Tom Mitchell at Apex Solutions. "Tim, we just got a call from Rebecca Torres at T&T. They want to switch to us, but only if you're involved in the setup." "What did you tell them?" "That we'd be honored to have you design their new system." This was the moment I'd been waiting for. Not revenge exactly, but vindication. The market was speaking, and it was saying that experience mattered. Over the next week, I received similar calls about 4 other data tech clients, all expressing interest in switching if I was available to handle their accounts. I accepted 3 of the contracts, not out of spite, but because these were relationships I'd built over decades. They trusted me, and I wouldn't let them down. When word reached Jason that I was working with his former clients, he called me immediately. "This is unethical," he accused. "No, Jason, this is business." A month after my firing, something unprecedented happened. Dr. Patricia Reynolds, a board member at DataTech and the company's founding investor, requested a meeting with me. We met at an upscale restaurant downtown. Dr. Reynolds was in her 70s, with sharp eyes and a reputation for asking tough questions. "Tim, I'll be direct. We're hearing concerning reports about system stability since your departure." I chose my words carefully. Transitions can be challenging, especially with complex systems. "The board is conducting a review of recent personnel decisions. Would you be willing to provide your perspective?" This was delicate territory. I couldn't appear vindictive, but I also couldn't let them off the hook. "I'm happy to share my observations, but I should note that I'm now consulting for other firms in the industry." Dr. Reynolds nodded. "We're aware. Frankly, the fact that our former clients are following you speaks volumes." Over the next hour, I explained the complexity of the systems I'd built, the relationships I'd cultivated, and the institutional knowledge that couldn't be easily transferred. "In your opinion," she asked finally, "how should we have handled your transition?" "A gradual handoff over 6 to 12 months. Continued consulting relationship. respect for the knowledge I'd accumulated over 2 decades. Instead of immediate termination? Instead of immediate termination. Dr. Reynolds took notes throughout our conversation. I could see the wheels turning in her sharp mind. During the Christmas holidays, while I was enjoying a peaceful vacation with my family, Data Tech experienced what industry publications would later call the holiday meltdown. It started on December 23rd, when automated scripts I'd written years earlier began their annual cleanup process. These scripts were designed to clear temporary files and reset certain system parameters to prevent data bloat. It was routine maintenance that I'd performed every year, usually with careful monitoring to ensure nothing went wrong. But this year, I wasn't there to monitor it. The scripts ran as programmed, but without proper oversight, they ended up deleting critical temporary files that the new routing system was actively using. By Christmas morning, half of DataTech's client networks were experiencing sporadic outages. Sarah texted me on Christmas Day, "Emergency at work. Jason trying to reach you, says it's urgent." I looked at my phone. 23 missed calls from various DataTech numbers. I was spending Christmas with my grandchildren, watching them open presents, enjoying the peaceful morning. I turned off my phone and didn't turn it back on until the following Monday. When I finally checked my messages, there were 47 voicemails. The last one, from Jason, was barely coherent. "Tim, please. I know it's Christmas, but we're in crisis mode. Clients are furious. Please call me back." I deleted all the messages without listening to most of them. The new year brought Jason's biggest humiliation yet. He'd been scheduled to present DataTech's new streamlined systems at the annual Telecommunications Innovation Conference, a major industry event with over 500 attendees. I wasn't planning to attend, but Tom Mitchell at Apex Solutions invited me as his guest. "You should see this," he said with a knowing smile. Jason's presentation was titled, "Modernizing Legacy Systems for Maximum Efficiency." The irony wasn't lost on anyone who knew the real story. Everything started smoothly. Jason clicked through his slides, talking confidently about eliminating outdated processes and empowering younger talent. Then came the live demonstration. He attempted to show how their modernized system could handle complex routing scenarios in real time. The system immediately crashed. "Technical difficulties," Jason announced with forced confidence as he tried to restart the demo. The second attempt failed even faster. From the audience, I watched as panic spread across his face. He tried a third time, but the system was completely unresponsive. "Perhaps we should move to questions," suggested the moderator. The first question came from an engineer I recognized. "What specific improvements have been made to the Tim Grant architecture?" Jason's face went pale. He hadn't expected anyone to know my name or my connection to their systems. The presentation ended in disaster, with Jason mumbling through technical explanations he clearly didn't understand. After the conference debacle, Tom Mitchell approached me with an interesting proposition. "We've been trying to break into the enterprise telecommunications market for years," he explained. "Your reputation and relationships could be exactly what we need." The offer was compelling. Senior technical advisor role with significant equity, plus the freedom to build my own team and choose my projects. "What about non-compete clauses?" I asked. "You're not competing," Tom smiled. "You're innovating. Besides, DataTech terminated your employment. Any non-compete obligations ended when they ended your contract." That afternoon, I called my lawyer to confirm the legal situation. The answer was clear. I was free to work with any company in any capacity. Within a week, I'd accepted Apex's offer. My first project would be designing a next-generation routing system that would make DataTech's technology look like something from the Stone Age. But more importantly, I'd be working directly with 3 former DataTech clients who had already expressed interest in switching to Apex. When the industry publication Tech Daily announced my new position, my phone rang within minutes. "This is war," Jason's voice was shaking with rage. "No, Jason. This is business. You taught me that." 6 months into my role at Apex, something unexpected happened. DataTech was selected for a routine compliance audit by the Federal Communications Commission, a standard review that happens every few years. The FCC auditors requested detailed documentation of all system architectures, maintenance procedures, and security protocols. Standard stuff, except for one problem. Most of that documentation referenced systems and procedures that only I fully understood. I received a call from the lead auditor, Jennifer Walsh. "Mr. Grant, we're reviewing Datatech's telecommunications infrastructure, and your name appears throughout their technical documentation. Would you be available to clarify some items?" This was perfectly legal. The FCC had every right to interview former employees to understand system designs. During the interview, I was completely honest about everything. The current status of the systems, the maintenance requirements, the security protocols that were or weren't being followed. "In your professional opinion," Auditor Walsh asked, "are these systems being properly maintained?" I explained the complexity of the maintenance requirements, the institutional knowledge needed, and the specific expertise required to ensure compliance. "Have you observed any compliance issues since your departure?" I detailed the outages, the failed presentations, and the general system instability that had become apparent. The audit report, released 6 weeks later, was devastating. Datatech received citations for 14 different compliance violations and was given 90 days to bring their systems up to standard. As news of the compliance violations spread, something beautiful happened. Former colleagues began reaching out, not just to gossip, but to apologize. Mike Patterson, a senior engineer who'd worked under me for 8 years, called one evening. "Tim, I should have spoken up when they fired you. We all knew it was wrong." "It's not your fault, Mike. Everyone has to protect their own job." "Maybe, but watching what's happened since, it's been a disaster. Half the team is looking for new jobs." Mike wasn't the only one. Over the next few weeks, I heard from 7 former colleagues, all expressing regret about how I'd been treated, all asking if Apex was hiring. I put Mike in touch with Tom Mitchell, and within a month, he joined our team. 2 other engineers followed, but the real validation came from an unexpected source: Glassdoor reviews. Someone, I never found out who, had posted a detailed review of Datatech that went viral. Senior leadership eliminated their most experienced engineer immediately after he finished training his replacements. Since then, the company has experienced multiple system failures, lost major clients, and failed FCC compliance audits. If you're an experienced professional, this company doesn't value you. The review had over 200 likes and dozens of supporting comments from current and former employees. Jason tried to have it removed, but Glassdoor verified it as legitimate. 8 months after my firing, Jason made a desperate decision. Datatech filed a lawsuit against me, claiming I'd violated non-disclosure agreements and interfered with their business relationships. I wasn't surprised. Desperate people do desperate things. My lawyer, Margaret Hugh, was practically gleeful when she saw the filing. "This is going to be fun," she said. They have no case, and filing this lawsuit was probably the worst decision they could have made. Here's what Jason didn't know. I'd been documenting everything. Every call, every email, every conversation. I had timestamped logs of every system I'd designed, every training session I'd conducted, every warning I'd given about maintenance requirements. More importantly, I had proof that every client who'd switched to Apex had done so voluntarily, based on their own technical needs and loss of confidence in Datatech's capabilities. The discovery process was brutal for Datatech. They had to turn over internal communications, including Jason's emails about getting rid of dead weight and his panicked messages during system failures. The case was dismissed within 6 months, with the judge ruling that Datatech had failed to demonstrate any wrongdoing on my part. Even better, the court awarded me attorney's fees and costs, nearly $150,000. But the real victory was the public record. Every humiliating detail of Datatech's mismanagement was now documented in court filings that anyone could access. While the lawsuit was ongoing, I'd been busy building something special. Working with Apex's resources and my new team of talented engineers, we developed what would become known as Grant Flow, a revolutionary telecommunications routing system that addressed every limitation of the technology I'd built at Datatech. But this wasn't just about technology. I'd also started mentoring younger engineers, sharing not just technical knowledge but wisdom about building sustainable careers. One of my mentees, Jessica Park, was a brilliant 26-year-old who reminded me of myself at that age. "How do you know when you're being taken advantage of?" she asked one day. "When they need your knowledge but don't respect your experience," I replied. "When they see you as disposable despite being irreplaceable." The mentoring program grew organically. Soon, I was working with a dozen young engineers, teaching them not just technical skills but professional survival. When Tech Weekly wrote a feature about the program, they titled it, "The Mentor Corporate America Threw Away." The article featured quotes from my mentees about learning real-world wisdom and understanding the importance of documenting their contributions. The piece went viral in engineering circles, shared thousands of times with comments from professionals who'd had similar experiences. Jason's response was predictable. He tried to claim credit for training me, conveniently forgetting that he'd fired me. 1 year after my firing, something unprecedented happened. 3 members of Jason's team submitted their resignations on the same day. Mike Patterson, who'd already joined Apex, told me the story. They coordinated it. All 3 of them had job offers elsewhere, and they decided to leave together to make a statement. The resignations included a joint letter to Dr. Reynolds and the board, detailing the ongoing technical problems, the poor leadership, and their loss of confidence in the company's direction. But the real bombshell was hidden in the letter. "We recommend the immediate reinstatement of proper system maintenance protocols as designed by Tim Grant, and we strongly suggest consulting with Mr. Grant on system stabilization." The letter leaked to industry blogs within days. The image of Jason's own team publicly recommending that I be brought back was devastating to his credibility. That evening, I received a call from Dr. Reynolds. "Tim, the board is prepared to make you an offer to return as Chief Technology Officer, with a significant salary increase and full authority over technical operations." I listened politely to the proposal. It was generous, more money than I'd ever made, complete autonomy, and essentially Jason's job. "I appreciate the offer, Dr. Reynolds, but I'm very happy with my current position. Would you consider it if we made structural changes to leadership?" I'm afraid my answer would be the same. I've moved on. The board's offer to bring me back sparked something I hadn't expected. A shareholder revolt. Within days of the news leaking, Datatech's stock price dropped 12%. Investors were asking pointed questions about management decisions that had led to the loss of key personnel and major clients. During the quarterly earnings call, CEO Margaret Foster faced a barrage of questions. Why was a 23-year veteran terminated immediately after training his replacements? What's the company's plan to address ongoing technical difficulties? How much revenue has been lost due to client defections? Foster's answers were evasive and unconvincing. The stock dropped another 8% in after-hours trading. But the most damaging moment came when an analyst asked, "Given that Tim Grant has declined to return despite a generous offer, what does that say about the company's leadership culture?" Foster had no good answer. Meanwhile, at Apex, we were thriving. Grant flow had attracted interest from telecommunications companies across the country. I was busier and happier than I'd been in years. The contrast wasn't lost on industry observers. Tech Daily ran a side-by-side comparison. 1 year later, Datatech struggles while Tim Grant innovates. The article detailed Datatech's ongoing problems alongside Apex's growth and innovation. It was devastating. 18 months after my firing, the final domino fell in a way I never could have predicted. T&T Communications, Datatech's former largest client and the company I'd worked with for over a decade, announced they were terminating their contract 6 months early. The public statement was professional but damning. After careful consideration, T&T Communications has decided to transition to a service provider that better aligns with our technical requirements and reliability standards. Everyone in the industry knew what that meant. They were switching to Apex. But the real story came out when Rebecca Torres, T&T's CTO, gave an interview to Telecommunications Today. "We valued our relationship with Datatech for many years, primarily because of our working relationship with Tim Grant," she said. "When he left, we gave the new team a fair chance to prove themselves. Unfortunately, they were unable to maintain the level of service we required." The interview detailed specific incidents. The 14-hour outage, multiple smaller failures, and a general decline in system reliability. When Tim joined Apex Solutions, it became clear that our best option was to follow his expertise. The TNT contract was worth $3.2 million annually to Datatech. Losing it was a financial catastrophe. Jason's response was to blame me publicly, claiming I had poached the client through unethical means. The backlash was swift and brutal. Industry professionals who knew me defended my reputation, while clients and colleagues shared their own stories of Datatech's declining service. 2 years after my firing, Jason Trevors was gone. The board's patience had finally run out. A series of bad decisions, declining client relationships, and the TNT loss had made his position untenable. But Jason didn't go quietly. In his final meeting with Dr. Reynolds, he made one last desperate play. "This is all because of Tim Grant," he argued. "He's been sabotaging us from the beginning." Dr. Reynolds' response was swift and decisive. "Tim Grant didn't sabotage anything. You fired the one person who understood our core systems, ignored the warnings about proper maintenance, and drove away our most valuable clients. You sabotaged yourself." The news of Jason's termination spread through the industry within hours. My phone buzzed with calls and texts from former colleagues, clients, and competitors. But the most meaningful call came from Sarah in accounting. "Tim, I know you probably don't want to hear about Datatech anymore, but I had to tell you. Everyone here is celebrating. Jason's gone, and Dr. Reynolds is personally overseeing the search for new technical leadership. I'm happy for all of you," I replied honestly. "You deserve better leadership." She asked me to give you a message. The door is always open if you ever want to come home. I appreciated the sentiment, but Apex was my home now. While Datatech was imploding, something extraordinary was happening in my new life. The mentoring program I'd started had grown into something bigger than I'd ever imagined. Tech companies across the country were reaching out, asking me to help them retain and develop their experienced engineers. The message was clear. The industry was finally recognizing that pushing out veterans was bad business. My consulting firm, Grant Advisory, was officially launched with a simple mission: helping companies value experience while developing new talent. Our first major client was a Fortune 500 telecommunications company struggling with high turnover among senior engineers. "We keep losing our best people to companies that appreciate their experience," the CEO told me. The solution was comprehensive: mentorship programs, knowledge transfer protocols, and leadership development that valued wisdom alongside innovation. Within 6 months, their retention rates had improved dramatically. The most satisfying moment came when I received an invitation to speak at the same telecommunications innovation conference where Jason had humiliated himself 2 years earlier. My presentation was titled "The Value Equation: Why Experience Multiplies Innovation." The auditorium was packed, with Dr. Reynolds in the front row. 3 years after Jason fired me, I received an unexpected call. Datatech had been acquired by Meridian Technologies in what industry publications called a fire sale. The new owners wanted to rebuild the technical team and modernize the systems. They asked if I'd be willing to consult on the transition. "We understand you have history with this company," said David Hugh, Meridian's CTO, "but we're not the same management team. We're looking for the best technical expertise available." The irony wasn't lost on me. They were asking me to help fix the mess that my firing had created. I agreed to a limited consulting contract, not because I needed the money, but because I felt bad for the employees who were still there. Sarah and a dozen other good people who didn't deserve to suffer for Jason's mistakes. Walking back into the Datatech building felt surreal. The same lobby, the same elevators, but everything was different. New management, new energy, new respect for experience. My first meeting was in the same conference room where Jason had fired me 4 years earlier. "Mr. Grant," David Hugh began, "we need your help rebuilding these systems from the ground up." Today, I sit in my corner office at Apex Solutions, looking out at the city skyline. At 62, I'm busier and more fulfilled than I've ever been. GrantFlow has become the industry standard for telecommunications routing. Grant Advisory has helped dozens of companies improve their retention and knowledge transfer. My mentorship program has developed into a full-fledged institute. But the real satisfaction comes from the relationships I've built and the people I've helped. Last week, Jessica Park, one of my first mentees, was promoted to senior systems architect. She called to thank me for teaching her to document everything and never underestimate her own value. I was in a meeting yesterday where they suggested eliminating some senior engineers to save money, she told me. I stood up and explained exactly what they'd be losing. They changed their minds. That's the real victory. Not revenge against Jason, but ensuring that the next generation of engineers won't face the same disrespect. Data tech is thriving under new management. Jason reportedly works as a junior project manager somewhere. I hope he learned something. As for me, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. Building, mentoring, innovating, and proving every day that experience isn't something to be discarded. It's something to be treasured.